In a world overflowing with noise, the most powerful man is not the one who speaks the loudest, but the one who holds his silence with authority. For centuries, rulers, generals, and cunning princes have bent the wills of others without uttering a single word. Today, we uncover Machiavelli's silent strategy: how to command fear and respect without saying a word. Have you ever entered a room and felt invisible, ignored, or powerless? What if I told you that the solution is not in speaking more, but in speaking less? Perhaps not at all. The problem we solve today is simple: how to make others acknowledge your presence, respect your strength, and even fear your silence. There are moments when a man walks into a room, and without saying a word, the air shifts. Conversations falter, eyes are drawn, and an unspoken weight fills the space. This is not magic, nor is it accident. It is the deliberate crafting of presence, the ability to command fear and respect by sheer force of being. Niccolò Machiavelli understood that words, though sharp, are fleeting, but presence, true presence, lingers long after silence has passed. To command presence, one must first learn the art of stillness. Consider how easily men betray themselves in their movements: fidgeting hands, restless feet, hurried gestures. These are the marks of the weak, those desperate to be acknowledged. But the man of power does not chase attention. He allows it to come to him. He stands firm, anchored like stone, and by doing nothing, he unsettles those who cannot bear stillness. People wonder, why is he unmoving? What does he conceal behind such calm? The silence of the body plants seeds of unease in the minds of others. Presence is not noise. It is weight. The powerful need not rush to speak, nor explain themselves. Their value is measured in how others react in their company. Imagine two rulers. One shouts orders, his words scattering like sparks in the wind. The other says nothing, yet his eyes hold steady, his posture unbroken. Who commands greater respect? Who sows greater fear? It is always the one who allows silence to carry his authority. For words can be challenged, debated, and dismissed, but silence cannot be argued with. Even the smallest actions become amplified when performed by a man of presence. The turning of the head, the raising of an eyebrow, the measured pace of footsteps. Each becomes a declaration. And why? Because others are already watching, already waiting. This is the power of presence. It draws attention without asking. It commands focus without demanding. Machiavelli knew that when a prince enters a hall, he must carry himself as though the world bends slightly around him. Not through arrogance, but through calculated composure. But presence is not merely physical. It is also psychological. To hold presence is to be unreadable, to resist the urge to fill silence with words. Most men, when faced with quiet, rush to break it. They laugh nervously, they explain too much, they seek approval through chatter. Yet the powerful man remains unmoved, allowing the discomfort to grow. The silence presses on others like a weight, forcing them to reveal themselves while he reveals nothing. In this way, presence is not passive. It is a weapon. By refusing to speak, you force others to overspeak. By holding still, you make others restless. Their weakness becomes your strength. Think of the general on the battlefield. Standing tall as chaos erupts around him, soldiers look to him not for words, but for his composure. His calm becomes their courage. Or the prince in court, seated in silence as rivals argue among themselves, revealing their ambitions and fears. He listens, observes, and speaks only when the silence has sharpened his words into blades. Presence is not absence of speech. It is the patient gathering of power until the moment is right. To cultivate presence, one must master restraint. Do not rush to respond when spoken to. Allow pauses. Let silence stretch until others feel compelled to fill it. Do not reveal excitement too quickly, nor anger too openly. The man who controls his face controls the battlefield of perception. And remember, presence is magnified when rare. If you speak often, your silence carries little meaning. But if you speak rarely, then every word becomes precious, and every silence becomes terrifying. Presence also thrives on contrast. If you walk into a crowded room, where everyone competes to be heard, your silence becomes thunderous. If you stand among those who are restless, your stillness becomes immovable. Men fear what they do not understand and respect what they cannot ignore. Thus, to hold presence is to be both visible and mysterious, both near and untouchable. It is to make others feel your weight without needing to lift a hand. Machiavelli warned that a prince must be feared more than loved, if he cannot be both. Yet fear need not always come from threats or violence. Sometimes, the most effective fear is born in the imagination of others. Presence awakens that imagination. When a man says nothing, those around him begin to wonder, what is he thinking? What does he plan? Does his silence mean disapproval or something worse? Their uncertainty becomes his power. And so, through presence alone, a ruler can govern hearts and minds without a single decree. Understand this: the world does not remember the loud. It remembers the commanding. Presence is the invisible crown, worn not upon the head, but carried in the bearing of the body and the weight of silence. It does not need to announce itself. It does not need applause. It simply is. And in that being, others are compelled to bend toward it, whether in respect, in fear, or in both. In the game of power, the man who reveals everything is already defeated. His thoughts are transparent, his emotions easily read, his intentions open for others to twist and use against him. Machiavelli understood this fatal error. He knew that mystery, carefully cultivated, is worth more than armies, for it enslaves the minds of those who seek to know what lies hidden. The art of controlled mystery is the art of becoming unreadable, of speaking less and suggesting more, of cloaking your true self in shadows so that others must stumble in uncertainty while you move with perfect clarity. Consider how men fear the unknown more than they fear the known. A sword raised in daylight can be parried, but a dagger hidden in the dark awakens terror. Words, when spoken, can be argued, but silence filled with possibility becomes unbearable. Controlled mystery is not silence for its own sake, but silence sharpened into a blade. You do not vanish entirely, for ghosts inspire less respect than living rulers. Instead, you reveal only fragments, enough to intrigue, never enough to satisfy. Every gesture, every pause, every withheld detail becomes part of the theater of power. Look to the court of princes and kings, where flatterers, spies, and enemies circle like vultures. The man who explains himself feeds these vultures with every word, until they know his weaknesses, his desires, his fears. But the man of mystery starves them. They cannot predict him, they cannot control him, and so they fear him. To be mysterious is to place a veil between yourself and the world. A veil so thin they think they can pierce it, yet so strong they never truly can. That veil is what grants influence, for men always respect what they cannot fully grasp. Controlled mystery is not the absence of expression. It is the mastery of expression. A prince may choose to show anger, but only when it serves him. He may display kindness, but only enough to keep men guessing whether it is genuine or calculated. He withholds more than he reveals, but he reveals just enough to plant questions in the minds of others. This is why Machiavelli wrote that men judge by appearances, and appearances must be crafted like armor. The mysterious man does not simply exist. He performs, but performs with restraint, offering hints instead of explanations, shadows instead of light. Imagine entering a hall where rivals watch you closely, waiting for signs of weakness. They expect you to speak, to defend, to explain. But you do not. You stand, you smile slightly, you answer with brevity that reveals nothing. They press harder, and still you give them nothing but fragments. Soon they argue among themselves, trying to decode your silence. One claims you are confident, another that you are plotting, another that you are ignorant. Their confusion is your fortress. You have told them nothing, yet they reveal everything. This is the weapon of mystery. It makes others expose themselves while you remain untouchable. Controlled mystery also lies in unpredictability. If men know your every move, they will prepare against you. But if they cannot guess your next step, they walk in fear. Speak one way today, another tomorrow. Show warmth in one meeting, coldness in the next. Not out of chaos, but out of strategy. By shifting your mask, you make others doubt their own judgment, and when men doubt themselves, they cling tighter to the one they cannot understand, hoping to win favor, fearing to provoke wrath. Mystery binds them, for the unknown is more powerful than the known. Even silence itself, when wielded with calculation, becomes theatrical. A long pause after a question, a gaze that lingers too long, an expression that suggests knowledge you will never share. These tiny acts create storms of speculation in the minds of others. They wonder what you meant, what you intend, what you are holding back. They cannot escape the prison of their own curiosity, and so they circle around you, desperate for answers you will never give. In their hunger for understanding, they grant you their attention, their respect, and even their fear. Machiavelli knew that love from others is fickle, but fear born of mystery endures. For men do not fear what they see clearly. They fear what they cannot measure. When a ruler is fully known, he becomes predictable, and predictability breeds contempt. But when a ruler holds himself in shadows, when his motives are wrapped in silence, when his next move is forever uncertain, then even his enemies tread lightly. The art of controlled mystery is not merely to be silent, but to become a riddle too dangerous to solve, a presence too uncertain to challenge. Men are betrayed not by their enemies, but by their own faces, their own tongues, their own uncontrolled gestures. The weak cannot hide what burns within them. Their eyes widen in fear, their voices tremble with anger, their laughter spills too freely in moments of delight. And in these betrayals, others seize advantage. Machiavelli understood that power belongs not to the man who feels deeply, but to the man who governs his expressions with iron discipline. Discipline over expression is not merely restraint. It is the ability to decide what others may see and what must remain forever concealed. When you cannot master your expression, others will master you. The rival who sees you flinch when his words strike a nerve knows where to wound you next. The subordinate who notices hesitation in your voice senses weakness and grows bold. The ally who sees envy in your eyes learns you can be manipulated. Every uncontrolled reaction is a gift to those who study you. But when you hold discipline, when your face remains unreadable and your tone steady, you rob them of their weapons. They strike blindly, while you, unmoved, remain untouchable. Discipline begins with silence of the face, the lips that do not twitch, the eyes that do not dart, the brow that does not furrow. These are marks of control. Do not allow your face to betray your inner fire, whether it be rage, joy, or sorrow. For the moment others can measure your emotions, they can measure your decisions. But when your face remains a mask, they live in uncertainty, forever guessing what thoughts lie behind your calm. It is not the storm that terrifies men. It is the silence before it breaks. Think of the king whose court watches him with anxious eyes. Petitioners plead, flatterers whisper, rivals conspire, yet his expression remains carved in stone. They lean closer, searching for signs, desperate to read what he feels. But they find nothing. Their own nerves unravel while his power deepens. His discipline becomes a weapon sharper than a sword, for they cannot fight what they cannot read. His very restraint enslaves their imaginations, and in that slavery, he rules without lifting his hand. But discipline does not end with the face. The tongue, too, must be chained. Men ruin themselves not because they speak, but because they speak too quickly. Anger forces words from their lips that they later regret. Pride compels them to reveal more than is wise. Fear makes them confess what should have been kept secret. Every word is a step onto a battlefield, and the undisciplined man rushes forward without armor. Yet the disciplined man speaks slowly, if at all. He measures each word, allows silence to sharpen its edge, and never utters what cannot serve his purpose. In this way, his voice is not wasted breath, but an instrument of power. Even the body must be governed. The hand that trembles, the foot that shifts, the breath that quickens, all reveal weakness to the trained eye. To command fear and respect, you must master stillness. Stand as if rooted, move as if deliberate, breathe as if the world itself bends to your rhythm. Discipline is not the absence of movement, but the control of it. Every gesture should be chosen, every pause intentional. Men must believe you act not out of impulse, but out of will. For the undisciplined man reacts to the world, but the disciplined man makes the world react to him. There is also power in withholding. When insulted, do not flare with anger, for anger is expected and therefore cheap. When praised, do not beam with joy, for joy reveals hunger for approval. When threatened, do not show fear, for fear invites further attack. Instead, remain unmoved. Let them wonder if their words touched you at all. Let them suspect that your silence hides plots more dangerous than any outburst. The greatest weapon of discipline is doubt. You deny others certainty about where you stand, and in that uncertainty, they lose their footing. Machiavelli observed that men are simple and easily deceived. But what deceives them most is their own imagination. When you reveal little, they fill the silence with their own fears and hopes. They project onto you what they most dread or desire. A steady face becomes, in their minds, a mask hiding vengeance. A calm tone becomes a whisper of hidden schemes. A still posture becomes evidence of strength beyond measure. By disciplining your expressions, you force others to betray themselves, while you remain untouchable, unmoved, and unread. Discipline over expression is not coldness. It is strategy. You are not commanded to feel nothing, but to reveal nothing that does not serve your ambition. Anger may boil within, but let it burn silently, hidden behind a calm exterior. Joy may surge in your heart, but let your smile flicker only when it suits you. Fear may press against your ribs, but let your breath remain steady, for to show fear is to give it away. In discipline you are free, not because you feel less, but because you reveal only what strengthens your hand. In the theater of influence, the most formidable weapon is often invisible. It is not a sword that cuts, nor a decree that commands obedience. It is silence, carefully chosen, patiently held, and wielded with precision. Machiavelli understood that the tongue, while powerful, is fragile. Words can be twisted, promises broken, and threats defied. But silence, disciplined and deliberate, carries weight that cannot be contested. The unspoken word strikes deeper than any proclamation, for it forces others to confront their own uncertainty and exposes the hidden currents of power that run beneath the surface. The unspoken weapon is not mere muteness. It is strategic restraint. It is knowing when to speak and when to remain entirely unreadable. Most men, when confronted, rush to defend themselves, to explain, to justify. Their urgency betrays weakness. But the man who wields the unspoken weapon does nothing of the sort. He observes, he waits, he lets the conversation unfold without interference, and in doing so, he turns the momentum to his favor. Others speak themselves into revealing their fears, desires, and intentions, while he remains impenetrable. He does not fight battles with words, for he understands that the battlefield is the mind, and the mind can be conquered without a single utterance. In gatherings of influence, silence exerts an authority that is impossible to ignore. When a prince enters a hall and says nothing, eyes turn, conversations pause, and whispers arise. People instinctively seek meaning in the absence of speech. They attempt to fill the void with speculation, with analysis, with conjecture. And in this speculation, they reveal more than they intended. The unspoken weapon transforms the curiosity and anxiety of others into leverage for the one who holds his tongue. In this way, silence is never empty. It is full of invisible power, waiting to be seized. The true master of the unspoken weapon understands timing. He knows that silence, when prolonged too much, may be mistaken for ignorance or weakness. He knows that speaking at the wrong moment can dissipate authority, and speaking at the right moment can magnify it to unstoppable force. There is art in deciding when to let words pass, and when to let silence speak for itself. Each pause becomes a statement, each withheld response a declaration, and each calm gaze a judgment. In this orchestration of restraint, power becomes effortless, for it is not demanded. It is conceded by those who cannot predict or control him. Consider negotiations, where men trade not only goods but respect and influence. The undisciplined man fills the air with argument, counterpoints, and persuasion, thinking his words will bend others to his will. Yet the master of the unspoken weapon remains silent, letting the pressure of expectation weigh upon those who seek his approval. Each question they pose, each hesitation they betray, becomes a mirror of their own uncertainty. They reveal their intentions, their fears, their limits, all while he reveals nothing. The silence itself is a weapon, sharper and more subtle than any sword. Even in confrontation, the unspoken weapon excels. When provoked, most men react instantly, their anger spilling forth in gestures, words, or threats. This reaction is predictable, exploitable, and often self-defeating. But the one who masters silence does not react, he disarms. His calmness forces the aggressor to question his own actions, to pause, to consider. Each moment the aggressor hesitates is another victory for the silent strategist. He has turned aggression into a mirror, and in the reflection, the opponent confronts his own folly. To wield silence in such moments is to control the battlefield without a strike, to dominate the interaction without conflict. The unspoken weapon also cultivates loyalty and respect. Those who interact with a man of measured silence begin to recognize his presence as authoritative, his judgment as deliberate, his intentions as deliberate and wise. They learn to value what he reveals sparingly, to weigh his words carefully, and to anticipate his actions. In this manner, silence does not isolate. It commands attention, shapes perception, and constructs an aura of invincibility. Men fear less what is spoken harshly than what is held back, for the hidden word carries infinite potential for consequence. Machiavelli himself observed that rulers are often undone not by enemies, but by those closest to them who have learned to manipulate the predictable. The unspoken weapon disrupts predictability entirely. By withholding speech, the master ensures that no one can anticipate his reactions, nor exploit his intentions. He becomes an enigma, and enigmas are powerful. People respect what they cannot fathom, fear what they cannot measure, and often defer to it, granting authority without demand. In this silent mastery, influence is absolute, and the mind of the strategist reigns where swords and armies may fail. Finally, the unspoken weapon is a lesson in patience. It requires a calm mind, a steady heart, and confidence in one's own judgment. Silence is not a retreat. It is the careful gathering of power until the moment arrives when its release is decisive. It is the knowledge that the world often speaks too much, acts too hastily, and gives itself away. By doing nothing, yet seeming to command everything, the master of silence bends others to his will, not through coercion, but through the invisible, irresistible force of unspoken authority. And so, we see the true art of influence is not in the clamor of words, but in the mastery of silence, presence, and restraint. To command fear and respect without uttering a single syllable is to wield power in its most refined form. The presence that demands attention, the mystery that keeps others guessing, the discipline that conceals your intentions, and the unspoken weapon that moves unseen. All these are tools of the wise, the patient, and the cunning. Machiavelli taught that those who speak too much reveal their weakness, but those who speak little and act with purpose inspire awe and apprehension. In your silence, others will speak for you. In your calm, they will reveal themselves. In your restraint, they will bend to your will. To master these principles is to step into a realm where influence is earned not by noise, but by the quiet authority that leaves a mark far deeper than words ever could. Remember, true power is often invisible. It is not declared, it is felt. It does not demand attention, it commands it. And in that command, fear and respect coexist, shaping the world around you without a single word spoken.